If you're a parent considering giving your adult kid an early inheritance, then this video is for you. As the very fortunate recipient of an early inheritance, I thought I would just share my personal experience in the hopes that it helps parents think through the decision for themselves. Mine came as a shock. I think to understand why, you would have to understand my parents and my childhood. Neither of my parents came from any money at all. But when they got together, they made money. And it was a joke, not joke, throughout my entire childhood. They were convincing my sister and I, my sister's 3 years younger than me, that they were going to spend all of the money. And that if my sister and I wanted to maintain the lifestyle to which we had become accustomed to, that we would need to work for it and make it ourselves. So that's what I grew up believing. And all of their actions throughout my childhood were pretty consistent with that. Think pay less shoes and not giving us money just whenever. We never had designer clothes or anything like that. My parents let me know when I was like 12 that they were not going to buy me a new car when I turned 16, which was a crazy thing in the neighborhood that I grew up in, for parents to not do that. They said that they would match whatever I saved. So I did some saving and got my new car that way. I think the other thing that they intentionally did was to take my sister and I on a 16-hour drive every winter break down to Mexico, where my mom is from. And we would take with us all of this used clothes, shoes, toys that we had that we collected from neighbors and friends. And we would take it to a rural village where my grandfather lived, and we would give it away there. I think this was done to remind us constantly how lucky we were, how privileged we were, and was their attempt to make sure we did not feel entitled at all. And so it was even a surprise to me then, when I was about to graduate from college at UC Irvine, that they said they were going to buy a condo for me to live in while I went to law school. The whole plan was for me to become a lawyer so that I could take over the law firm that my parents had built together from scratch. My dad as the attorney, my mom as the money and business brains behind the whole operation. And I had learned about halfway through college, when I was giving up on my med school plans, from my mom that unless one of us had a license to practice law, we would be forced to sell the law firm in the event that anything happened to my dad, because apparently only a lawyer can own a law firm. So that's why I became a lawyer. It was out of like protection for the family. I also thought that I would enjoy doing the work, representing injured workers. And then I also knew that it would help ensure that I could maintain the lifestyle, the only one that I had ever known. So off I went to law school, graduated, passed the bar the first try, and I pretty quickly felt miserable being a practicing attorney. It was soul-sucking work. I had the voice in my head saying like, this is not my life, or this can't be my life. And so this was only like a year in, and I am debating with myself whether I could ever leave, what I would do. And then one day on my lunch break, I was driving to Whole Foods, and I got a call from my dad informing me that he was divorcing my mom. And he gave us the impression that it was like every person now for themselves. And so that gave me permission to leave, and my mom left, and that was that. And I think that long, drawn out, quite nasty divorce changed my mom. and I think is what led to my early inheritance, which I received only from my mom. So let's fast forward 15 years later. I'm now a real estate agent, mortgage broker, and financial coach. Still doing a little bit of law on the side, because if you know real estate, you know that it's really up and down, feast or famine, and the legal work helped cushion me and, gave me a sense of, continuity and a nice cushion. So I'm doing that when during COVID, my mom says, let's sell the condo that I had been living in since law school, and she was going to use that to help me get a house. Shocking, but it gets even better. So a little bit later, I'm looking at properties and I find a beautiful 5-unit multifamily in my neighborhood in Pasadena. And I figure that between the proceeds from the condo, my own savings, and a mortgage, I can get into this place. So we came to check it out, and it was amazing. And afterwards, my mom and I are standing on the sidewalk out front, just here. I'm like staring at it right now, where we stood. And she leaned over to me and she whispered, "Go ahead and make a full price offer, all cash." I was shocked, completely in shock. Could not believe this, could not wrap my head around this. And I don't think I fully had appreciated what this meant, and just wow, it had not sunk in. When my mom brought me back down to earth, she looked me dead in the eye and she said, "This is your inheritance. You better not lose it." And the weight of that really did bring me back down to earth. And I do carry that sense of responsibility, but my gratitude is even greater. And so here I am, living in one of the units and receiving rental income from the other 4 units. And it has drastically improved the quality of my life. And I had a pretty good life before, but I was still doing the legal work. And now I've been able to retire from that line of work, and I just do the real estate. I'm an agent, I'm a broker, and now a property manager, which I do take very seriously. Nobody who has owned a home or been a landlord has ever called it a passive endeavor. And I pride myself on being a proactive landlord, and I take care of the property and my tenants as best as I can. And it is a responsibility, and it is a job, it is work, but still so worth it. I love my work now. I love my life now. I have more control over my time. I can spend my days on my long walks, making sure I get my 10,000 steps in, and at least 3 times a week at the gym, and dancing, and friends, and living a life that I love so much. I have enormous peace, so much less stress, so much less anxiety. And it's not that I'm working less. I think I probably work harder and more hours, but I just do it from a place of passion now. And so this early inheritance has worked out really well for me, and also for my sister. And I think that the reason that my mom did it is because something shifted in her during the divorce, but also because, by the time that my mom did this, my sister and I were, my sister was in her late 30s, me in my early 40s, and we had, been in careers for, 15 some odd years already, working, taking care of ourselves, managing our own money. even though my mom thinks we spend too much still, but she was sufficiently convinced that we knew what we were doing, that we would not get ourselves into trouble with access to this kind of money, because we all know of people who receive inheritances or lottery winnings or things of that nature, and they blow it, they lose it, somehow they manage to get themselves in debt. And it can be a real danger if you're not prepared to handle the weight of it and the responsibility of it. And I think my mom knew that we were ready for it. I think she saw that the values of, hard work and not taking anything for granted, that they instilled in us as kids had been well established, and that we were going to be okay, that this was not going to hurt us. Because I think my mom was afraid for a long time that if we got access to this money, if we had this kind of money and we're not ready for it, that it could do some serious harm. And so I am very, very grateful that she chose the path to early inheritance, and she's able to now see the difference that it's making in my life and in my sister's life. And she gets to be there for us for, when we ask questions, because my mom is a bit of a real estate genius and property manager, so I can ask her. She's still here for me as, a real estate mentor of sorts. And so now I wish this for other people who are lucky enough to be in this position, to have this opportunity. And I help people that receive early inheritances. I make sure that they're prepared for it, and I help them buy real estate, and not just any real estate, life-changing real estate with it, whatever that means for them. And I know that this is not for everybody. Not everybody has the right, values, work ethic, personality, and most importantly, the right preparation for it. This is definitely something that somebody needs to be prepared for before they get the inheritance. And so I hope me sharing my story is helpful, and if I can be a further help, please reach out.